Hey there. Today we're going to learn how to compare and how to order different numbers based on their place value charts. So here I have over here a group of numbers that the directions are either going to ask me to list from greatest to least or from least to greatest. And it's really important that I'm paying attention to my directions to let me know which way I need to make sure that I am listing them. If I list them the opposite way, I would get a wrong answer. So it's really important that I'm looking at my directions. This group of numbers, we'll go ahead and we will list from greatest to least. And the way that I'm going to do that is I have them kind of set up right now where there are divided by place values. I have a place value chart here that I'm going to go ahead and plug each of these numbers into. That way I can make sure that my digits are aligned by place value so that when I'm comparing values, I know that it is the correct value that I'm looking at. So when I'm plugging in numbers, I want to start with the ones column. So my first number, 38,312, would fall in just like that. My next number, again, I'm starting in the ones. So 115,914 would fall in line just like that. And finally, my last number, 72,358, would fall into the places just like that. And now what I have is a really easy way to look at the digits and look at the place value that each one of those digits falls in. When I'm comparing or ordering, I always want to start with the highest place value. In this case, the highest place value that I have is the hundred thousands column. And you'll see that I only have one digit in my hundred thousands column. These two numbers on the top and the bottom did not actually have anything in the hundred thousands place. That means that I can assume that there are zeros in that place. And if I want to go ahead and add them, I can. That zero did not change this value at all. It just shows that there are hundred thousands in this number, and same with my number up here. And now when I'm comparing the numbers in my hundred thousands column, I can see that that one is going to be my greatest number. So therefore, this entire number would be my greatest number out of the three. So if I'm listing them, I'm going to start with my greatest number. When I'm separating my numbers down here from greatest to least or from least to greatest, I want to make sure that I'm using a different symbol other than a comma so that I can very clearly see where one number begins and where the next number begins. You could use a semicolon, which is just a comma with a little dot on top of it. If you wanted to use a slash, you could use a slash as well. And now that I've found the place, I know for sure that this is the highest number. I'm going to go ahead and cross it off or check it off or let myself know that I don't need to compare any numbers or any digits in that number anymore. Then I'm going to move on to my next highest place value, which in this case, my next highest place value is the 10,000s place. And right away, I see two different numbers, so I can compare both of those to figure out which one's larger. I know that 7 is larger than 3, so therefore this entire number must be larger than this number. So this is going to be the next number that I add to my list, 72,358. And again, I want to separate that number very clearly from the other numbers. And at the end of this problem, this is the last number that I have, which is 38,312. By default, it has to be the smallest number out of the ones that we were looking at. So I will go ahead and add that to my list. And there we have these numbers ranked from greatest to least. Let's look at one more example. It's much easier to compare numbers when you have different numbers of digits. So in this case, we had the hundred thousands column was different than the other, the 10,000s column. But sometimes we get a lot of numbers that look very similar to one another. And in that case, we have to look a little bit closer, and we might have to go further down the row of places to find the correct place. All right, so again, in this case right here, I have three numbers. For this one, we will go ahead and list our numbers in order from least to greatest instead of greatest to least. And again, you really need to make sure that you are paying attention to your directions to know what the question is asking you, if they're asking you for least to greatest or from greatest to least. So I'm going to go ahead and plug my numbers into my place value chart the same way that I did on the last problem. Again, starting with the ones to make sure that I'm lining them up correctly. And once you have this completed, you can now determine which is the greatest number by looking at the highest place value. So starting with the highest place value, we look in our 10,000s column, and we see the same digit for each of our numbers. That is not going to help us compare which of these is greater because they all have a value of 70,000 in the 10,000s column. So I have to go to the next column over, the next highest column, which is the thousands place. And here I again have two numbers that are the same, but I have one number that's different. So I can compare that one number to the other two to determine where it might fall on my ordering. Since 2 is less than 4, I can say that this entire number here in the middle is going to be the least number out of all three of these numbers. And even though I have several 9s in my hundreds, tens, and ones column, which are higher than all of the numbers or digits in my other numbers, because the 2 is in the thousands place, I know that it has a less value than the other two numbers with 4,000 in that number's place. All right, so the least number that I have is 72,999. Again, we're going to separate that. My next place value I have are the hundreds place, and I know I'm not looking at this middle number anymore, so I need to compare the hundreds numbers on the top and the bottom, and I see that they are both the same, 3 and 3. So I still cannot compare those two. I have to continue going to the next highest place value, which is the tens place, and here I do have two different digits. I have a 1 and I have a 5. So again, if I'm looking for the least, the lowest number, I'm going to choose the 1. And that next number that would fall in my order would be 74,312. And then finally, I know by default that my largest number would be this number right here, which would be 74,358, as it was the only number left over. So again, please make sure that you are paying really close attention to what the directions are asking if they are looking for the least greatest, or the least number or the greatest number, and make sure that you are ordering them in the correct way.